It's a new year, and with T-Mobile, it's not about how far apart we are. It's about how close we can be. So we're bringing out our best deal. Right now, get the iPhone 12 on us on every single plan with eligible iPhone trade-in.
So I can FaceTime with my sister in Savannah.
That's right, the iPhone 12 on us on every plan. All on America's 5G leader in coverage. T-Mobile.
With 24 monthly bill credits and a new line plus tax. If you cancel credit, stop and balance on required finance agreement may be due. Contact us for well-qualified buyers. Qualifying consumer plan required. See coverage and offer details at T-Mobile.com.
It's a new year, and with T-Mobile, it's not about how far apart we are. It's about how close we can be. So we're bringing out our best deal. Right now, get the iPhone 12 on us on every single plan with eligible iPhone trade-in.
So I can FaceTime with my sister in Savannah.
That's right, the iPhone 12 on us on every plan. All on America's 5G leader in coverage. T-Mobile.
With 24 monthly bill credits and a new line plus tax. If you cancel credit, stop and balance on required finance agreement may be due. Contact us for well-qualified buyers. Qualifying consumer plan required. See coverage and offer details at T-Mobile.com.
Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net. Check out the Weedsman Podcast, Tuesdays and Fridays on iTunes and ChristopherMedia.net. Christopher Media, let's make some noise. Christopher Media, let's make some noise. Welcome to Beer Nuts, a weekly excursion into the world of craft beer, brought to you by MichiganBeerGuide.com. And now, here are the Beer Nuts.
Beer Nuts number 8. Well, today, more like cider nuts. I don't know. We'll get into that. I'm Chris. With me is JR from MichiganBeerGuide.com.
Hey, right here.
Uncle Pete.
Right here.
Dugout.
Good to go.
Oh, wow. Look at that. I'll have to fix that in editing. I hit a button and it fast-forwarded the theme. That was cool. All right. This will be fun. It's our first show. We're two of us are in one location, two of us are in another. But we will get through it. So, like I said at the top of the show, JR, not beer nuts this week, more like cider nuts.
Yeah, we're going to talk about hard ciders to celebrate Halloween. It's that time of year where everybody does things a little differently. And hard ciders are a close relative of beer, and a lot of people like them, and we like them. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. So hopefully we'll enlighten you all on hard ciders. But as always, please keep in mind we're just a bunch of regular guys where everybody can be a beer nut, everybody can be a Michigan beer guy. What it's about is having fun with your friends and kicking back. So that's what we want you to do. We want you to kick back, open a beer, open a cider if you got one, and let's just have a good time. So without further ado, here you go, Uncle Pete.
All right, what do we got?
Designated beer tender on our location.
Sounds good. JK.
So, Uncle Pete, would you introduce the cider we're drinking?
Sure, we have natural and unfiltered JK's Farmhouse Summer Hard Cider. 22 fluid ounces of pure apple goodness. Preservative-free, right off the tree. You like what I did there?
Yeah.
Hey, you're a poet and didn't know it. Again, in keeping with our theme of always starting off our show with our beer quote of the week, I guess this week it's our cider quote of the week. We're going with a quote from the infamous Mo Howard of the Three Stooges, who we all know and love. And this week's quote is, "I'll squeeze the cider out of your Adam's apple." Oh, Curly. For the episode.
You knuckleheads.
Oh, I'm going to squeeze the cider out of your Adam's apple, Pete.
Yeah. Don't do this at home, kids.
Yeah.
I'm a victim of circumstance.
Oh, the Stooges are...
So I just took my first sip of cider, and that is delicious. Let's talk a little bit about the history of cider. Cider was first recorded in 55 BC. The first mention of any cider was when the Romans reached Kent, England, and found villagers drinking hard cider. And that was probably quite a discovery. Sure, they were very happy to find that. And that was the first time that they had discovered a beverage just fermented from apples. Moving on in history, the 13th to 17th centuries, back in England, a quarter of the people's wages were paid in cider. Why is that? Well, cider was a popular commodity because it was much safer than drinking water because there's no bacteria in it.
That again. Was the alcohol sterilize sterilize all the water?
Alcohol kills bacteria, so you could drink as much cider as you want without fear of getting sick. Whereas if you drank the water back then, you risked possibly getting disease and bacteria and sickness.
Now, was this another one of those on-accident beverages? Like, hey, we left this cider sitting around for a while, and now you can get drunk off of it. Or did they try to purposely do this, or does nobody know?
I think it's kind of a little bit of each. I think I mean, there's always stories about you see animals under a tree where there's like berries or fruits fall from a tree and they sit there in a while, maybe in a puddle of water, and natural fermentation takes place and the animals flock to it because they eat it and they get happy and they want more. So I'm sure it was discovered by accident, but then after some experimentation, they learned how to control it and make it, and wonderful thing. It's a thing of nature. Gift from nature.
Beautiful gift.
So in any event, moving on, the English settlers brought cider making to America in the 17th century when the New World was founded. And it was actually the drink of choice for our founding fathers. And from the 1700s well into the 1800s, cider was a really big deal in this country. Matter of fact, a little story about John Chapman, better known as Johnny Appleseed. He brought apples to the American frontier in the 1800s, and everybody has the little idea of Johnny Appleseed was this cool little wholesome guy that just planted apples all everywhere he went, and everybody just ate the apples on the trees. Well, that's a complete myth because most apple trees produce sour, inedible fruit. And back then, the only thing that apples were good for was to make cider. Now, the apples we get today that we eat and we find red, delicious apples in the grocery store, those are actually from the same plant. It's very difficult to plant an apple tree using a seed that has quality apples that you can eat. So anyway, the point of that story is Johnny Appleseed pretty much grew those apples to make hard cider with. Not that he's still not a wholesome guy, and he's certainly a hero in my eyes, but it's a little bit different than the school book stories.
Yeah, they don't tell you that in school.
No, he was a pretty quirky individual, too.
Yeah, I did read a little bit on him when I was doing some research for the show, and apparently he dressed in burlap sacks and stuff.
Yes.
So he was definitely, I guess you would say, eclectic, kind of a weird guy, but hey, you know what? We're still talking about him today, so he must have done something right.
Yeah.
And we know he did something right because he grew apples to make hard cider with.
Cheers to Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah, I believe there's a statue of him in...
the farmhouse summer cider. It does have a little sweetness to it. It is unfiltered, but for being unfiltered, it certainly looks pretty clear. What do you guys think? Looks very clear.
Looks very clear. It's got a really nice, refreshing, carbonated zest to it. I mean, if I was working hard in the orchards all day, I'd be wanting some of this.
Yeah, slightly acidic, but in a good way. I mean, this is quite a. I'd really enjoy this on a hot summer day. That's for sure.
It's definitely tasting.
I enjoy it right now.
Apple juice than some of the other ones we're going to taste tonight because it's not nearly as dry as the average cider, in my opinion. A little bit of sweetness to it, but
I wouldn't know this was had alcohol in it. Yeah, if I just picked it off the shelf and poured it in a glass.
It actually does taste very, very close to apple juice, and technically it is apple juice.
It just had around a little longer.
Just can't give that to the boys here.
Yeah. Like I tell you, I've been drinking hard cider since I was drinking it in college. Woodchuck was real popular when I was in college, and now it seems to be going through some kind of renaissance again.
Well, I have to tell you, I was actually going to put Woodchuck on the soda, but Dugout strictly forbid it because we're looking for a little bit more sophistication here.
Oh.
Well, and we are about craft products. We're doing craft beers, so it makes sense to me to do craft ciders, and I don't see Woodchuck as a craft cider. I mean, it's really not. It's pretty mass produced.
Well, just to be honest with you, and we'll get into this later in the show, my favorite kind of ciders are pear ciders. It may not be a craft cider to you, but Dugout, but I love the Woodchuck pear cider. And there's another one that I like even more called Ciders, which is also a widely distributed brand. Probably with me, any pear cider, also known as a Perry, those are my favorite types. So
I'm just looking at this J.K.'s Farmhouse ale or cider again. It's a 4.5% alcohol by volume. In the ingredients, it says fresh apple juice, oranges, raisins, coriander, and yeast. So it sounds like they have their own German Reinheitsgebot law for ciders here. All natural ingredients. Oranges, raisins, and coriander. You guys picking that up?
The Appleseed law.
I can't say I noticed any coriander. It just tasted very much like a delicious apple juice. Interesting. Anybody else? Anybody other comments on the flavor? Pretty just.
I mean, I think Pete's hitting it right on here. I wouldn't if you would. We'll start the sentence over. You would have to tell me there's alcohol in here.
It's like, hey kids, time for an apple juice break.
Yeah, get nap time to start real early.
So anyway, getting back to the history, we were back to the Johnny Appleseed era when it was settling the country and settlers were moving west in this country. Well, about the middle of the 1800s, cider was thriving, and the German immigrants started showing up on U.S. soil, and particularly in the Midwest, and they brought a lot of brewing knowledge. Started opening up big breweries and brewing lots of beer, and with their German lagers that everybody loved. German beers and German beer styles brewed in this country started taking over, and cider began to decline. And then when Prohibition hit in the early 1900s, it pretty much was the death of the cider scene here in the U.S. And pretty much killed the entire cider industry, what was left of it. So it was kind of, it thrived for a couple hundred years, and then Prohibition came, and that was what happened was the apple orchards that were used for the hard cider previously, they cut them down, and then, this country started getting settled and mass urbanization, and wasn't really any more need to have all these orchards. And when Prohibition was finally repealed in 1933, there were only a handful of farms that still produced hard cider, so it was kind of a lost art, and everybody went back to beer, and cider was forgotten about. So that's kind of where we came to, and then cider's always been big in Europe, much bigger than in this country, but I think in the last 20 years you've seen a big resurgence. What do you guys think?
That's an understatement, I'd say, as far as a resurgence.
Now with the craft beer revolution, people are also discovering other things like the ciders, and I think there's a lot more. I don't have any statistics right now. I'd have to look it up, but ciders, a lot more ciders are hitting the market, and there's a lot more interest. There's more interest in cider now than at any time since Prohibition, and I think it's kind of a good growth potential for that industry in the next 50 years and beyond. So let's move on to types of cider, and I'm getting this off the BJCP guidelines, which is a foreign acronym to most regular people. The BJCP stands for Beer Judging Certification Program. So like if you enter your cider competition, similar to a homebrew competition, they have a series of guidelines on what style is this and how is it supposed to be constructed, what's it supposed to be made with, how's it supposed to taste, etc., etc. Okay, now we're going to talk about New World ciders. We're going to go through the various types of ciders, and I'm kind of using the BJCP guidelines as my benchmark on how to go through different types of cider. And I'm sure you're wondering, what is this big complicated acronym, BJCP? And I'm not trying to get too technical on you, but it's the Beer Judge Certification Program, and they do have separate guidelines for ciders. So this is, for example, if you made your own cider and wanted to enter it in a competition, you would have to know exactly what style that you produced and enter it under that style, and it will tell you detailed what they judge, what they look for in each style. So without getting too technical, I'm just going to go through the various types, and the first one is New World cider. When I say New World cider, the term used to be common cider. Common cider differentiates from European ciders in that the apples that we use are the same type of apples that you use in like an apple pie or an apple that you would give your teacher. They are not specifically grown cider, grown to make food with. But by the way, we can make cider with them too. That's what differentiates them from the European styles. Session ciders are usually 5 to 8%. So your New World ciders aren't really too strong. Without further ado, let's taste a New World cider, and we're going to taste one called Starcut Octorock cider, which I believe is a Michigan cider. Does anybody know what is this? This is affiliated with Shorts in Elk Rapids, right? So Octorock is produced by Shorts Brewing in Bel Air, Michigan, and Elk Rapids, Michigan, actually. So let's taste it.
It has a much lighter color than the J.K.'s Farmhouse Summer Cider, and a much different carbonation to it, just visually.
First thing I get is not as sweet.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit more, little bitter.
It's more like wine.
It's like a champagne.
Well, I don't detect a huge amount of carbonation like a champagne would be, but it does have that more wine-like characteristics.
It has, that first one was real kind of sweet and apple juice-like. This is much drier. It's a little more earthy flavor.
Yeah, Pete, I think you and I were both kind of right. I think it's kind of like a champagne without too many bubbles.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Very good, nonetheless. I like it.
So well done, Starcut Ciders. Thumbs up from me. Any other comments from the rest of you guys?
It's named after a creature from the Legend of Zelda video game. I know that.
Oh, there's an insight.
I had no idea what Octorock meant, so I'm glad somebody knows. So I guess it's time to move on to the next type of cider. And I had mentioned that we used apples that were made for food, but the apples made in English cider are made for a different reason. And I'm going to turn it out to Dugout, our English cider expert.
Well, far from expert, although I've drank my fair share of English cider, that's for sure. English ciders are made with bittersweet and bitter sharp apples, cultivated specifically for cider making. They're traditionally fermented and aged in wooden barrels, which are rarely new, so you don't get that overpowering wood flavor in them. Most are dry with low to moderate carbonation, and they're generally in the 6 to 9% range for ABV. We brought along a farmhouse cider to taste, and this is another Michigan cider here. This one is from Tandem Ciders, and it's simply called Farmhouse, which we will... The name was a little confusing on the cider because that's typically a French style of cider, but this is made in English tradition. I find this cider to be much more tart. I actually like the style a lot more than the previous New World ciders. It doesn't have that kind of high acidity to it, although all of these have some amount of acidity to them, but it doesn't seem as blatant in this one.
Very much a much lighter color to this one as well.
Thank you, Uncle Pete. I'm seeing a little bit more carbonation, too. If you look closely, there's a lot of small, tiny bubbles. Oh, wow. Yeah, this is much different than either of the last two.
Is that diacetyl? Getting a little butter. There's a go.
Although it's technically in the cider.
I don't know if it's diacetyl. I think maybe something from the wood. It's not supposed to be woody, but something from the barrel, yeah.
It just caught me off guard after the first sweet one and then that next dry one.
But you know what? I mean, it's definitely got a little bit more of a sourness to it. Not in a bad way, but comments?
Nobody really sounds impressed at this one.
No, it's just different, I think. It stands out much differently from the first two. And the sourness, something coming from the wood effect is really coming through up front.
It's definitely much more complex than the other two. So the other two were kind of simpler and easier to enjoy. I'm searching for something and not really finding it.
Well, this to me comes across as more of a sipper and a kind of quaff and enjoy it, where like the first one we had would have been more of a slammer. Second one right in between.
And this one, you take your time with it.
It's definitely more like a wine.
This is the fun part, man. I love this. I mean, here we're getting into these ciders, and here we've got three of them. They're all very distinct, and that's the fun of this whole craft, the craze. I like it. It's growing on me.
I don't think we can move on yet because it's going to take us a while to drink this. Does anybody have any stories to tell about
a big bottle?
It's a very big bottle, yeah.
Yeah. I was reading, though, I just noticed on some of the literature I was reading that ciders are naturally gluten-free. And so for those people out there looking for their gluten-free beverages, this is a good natural choice.
Excellent point.
There you go. Get yourself a hard cider. No gluten.
And this particular Tandem cider is 5.6% on the alcohol. So even though it's a huge bottle, it's not going to lay a flat if you do take care of the whole thing.
This is a 750 milliliter bottle from Suttons Bay, Michigan. Let me just see. Let's read some stuff off the bottle. Farmhouse, polite, dry, and with a pleasing accent, this classic barrel-aged cider will leave you feeling chuffed to bits. Chuffed. Chuffed. I would imagine if we finished this whole bottle, we'd be a little bit chuffed.
Woohoo! Yeah. We'll find out what chuffed means.
We've already been chuffed to bits on this show.
I can tell you that there's no way Uncle Pete and I are going to finish this huge bottle because it's the same size as a wine bottle, and we have a lot of other things to taste. But
yeah,
it's definitely something that you would probably be more enjoyable with food, with something to accompany it.
Yeah, like my wife would be good to enjoy this bottle with me.
Yeah, I mean, it really does have characteristics of a wine. And I think that if you have some pork sniffers in your family, you should probably expose them to this.
I mean, come on, guys. How many of us have, our buddies that are saying, oh, yeah, man, I've been trying all these ciders. I mean, what's going to get heavy craft beer guys like us out to buy ciders?
The wives, the girlfriends.
Definitely.
Girlfriends. Right. Those single blondes, those single Belgian blondes we were talking about.
It's interesting because my wife will not touch anything beer-related, but I might be able to get her to try, especially that first one. It was a little sweet, tasted like apple juice.
Yeah, it's cider.
I can get her to taste that. Unfortunately, every time I try to get her to taste anything that's beer or fermented, no, she doesn't want it. But she does enjoy wine, and she likes Kahlua. That's about the extent of her.
By the way, cork sniffer sounds so derogatory.
I threw that out there because I used to sell wine, and we had the guys in the warehouse that drove the trucks. They called us all cork sniffers, all the wine sales.
Farting cork sniffer.
Well, back in...
It's funny you mentioned that because me and one other guy, now the distributor I worked for, we also sold beer. One of the brands we sold was one of my favorite old-time beers is Anchor Steam. And every year for Christmas, we sold predominantly wine, but we had beer in the portfolio. So every year at Christmas, Rich, my buddy, would buy a keg of Anchor Steam and put it in the warehouse on holidays, like holiday Friday. And when everybody was done for the day with their running their routes and delivering their stuff, they come back to the warehouse, and Rich personally paid as a Christmas gift for all these guys, or a holiday gift, a keg of Anchor Steam to thank them for the hard work they do every day. And so pretty soon, Rich, and even though Rich paid for it, him and I were like buddy, and we were kind of the guys that weren't quite the cork sniffers. We were looked at and viewed on more positively by the warehouse because we were more, we paid attention to them and would always compliment them and thank them for the great job they did. So that's where cork sniffers came from. So when we were like, at the end of the day, we go back and have a few Anchor Steams with the truck drivers in the warehouse and the delivery people and the warehouse pickers. They would just say, "Oh, you guys are much cooler than most of you cork sniffers." Mm-hmm. So that's where that term came from. So we're always looking for stories. So that was a story.
I just find it interesting that even though we've had... The first one was really sweet. The next one was fairly dry, not as sweet. This one I compare in sweetness to the second one. But I wonder, when I think about fermentation and being a home brewer, all of the fermentable sugars that come out of let's say an apple, there must be a way that they keep from fermenting the entire amount of sugar because you want to get that sweetness. Unless with that first one they were adding the orange, what we say, raisins and orange and coriander.
I know some home brewers that make cider, and they do what they call backfill it. They make it and they ferment it out, and when you ferment it all out, all the sugars get fermented out, and it's dry as a bone. So what they do, they'll add something at the end, and we'll go through something at the end of the show that tells you, hey, you can really simply make in your own kitchen with very minimal knowledge or tools, a gallon of cider in your own kitchen. So we'll get there. But basically, if you want to have any sweetness at all, you got to backfill it after it's done with something sweet.
Maybe honey or some more fruit juice.
Put anything in you want, because when you make something, as we always say with home brewers, you get to make the recipe.
I love it. Free reign.
Yes, free reign. So I guess we just got through the English cider category. Next up is French ciders.
Okay.
You want to go through French ciders?
Okay, sure. Uncle Pierre doing the French cider. So again, just like the English ciders, and Doug had mentioned, it's made with bittersweet and bitter sharp apples, grown specifically for cider making. And traditional French procedures in cider making, they use small amounts of salt and salt compounds. And what I've read about that is when they press the fruit, they want to manage the fermentation process and not have it ferment too quickly and too aggressively. I think that's part of maintaining some of that sweetness. If they slow down the fermentation, I believe these salt compounds will help manage the rate of fermentation. I don't know, Doug or JR, if you have any knowledge of that.
The only thing I have to say is they are actually very similar to the English style. The difference is the English put theirs in wooden barrels, and the French may or may not do that. And the French use these salt and salt compounds. The other thing I might add is that the French ciders are typically lower in alcohol, 3 to 6%, and whereas the British are 6 to 9%. So the French, I think, like to drink more and drink longer. Could be wrong on that, but again, they're big wine people. So yeah, it's just a different style. So we do not have a French cider here to taste tonight. So we'll move on to the next category, which is pear ciders, my favorite. I love all types of pear ciders. And the first category is New World Perry ciders. Again, in keeping with the same theme as New World ciders, New World Perry ciders are made from table pears. Pears that you would cook with or eat a pear from the grocery store. Versus, European perries would be made only, those pears are grown only for making cider. So the pear ciders are slightly sweet, about 5 to 7%. and I think they taste delicious. But I like pears, and my brother's name is Perry, so they are actually called Perry ciders, like Perry, like Perry Mason. And of course, since I'm sure you haven't, I'm sure you would imagine that since I love Perry ciders, there is a pear cider in the house, and yes, there is. So the same cider that we tasted the first, the J.K. Summer Farmhouse cider, well, the same cidery makes a pear cider that we have here. It's called J.K.'s The Pear, Perry Cider, Farmhouse Organic, made with apples and pears, and unfiltered and organic. And it's got the USDA organic, except the one here. So bartender, Uncle Pete,
All
let's
right.
crack that baby open. I want to have a big glass
wow.
of this because I really love this.
That's definitely different in contrast from the last. It's a lot sweeter.
This pear cider is night and day different.
Wow, you feel he knows
Well,
I like
yeah.
a healthy portion there. So
This is both apples and pears combined, right?
it is, and yes, it is. I would rather have pure pears, but this is pretty good. It's really good. It's closer in style to the first one we had, which makes sense. It's from the same cider maker. It definitely is back to being sweet, like the apple juice
Very much.
one that we had at the beginning. But you can tell it's different than just apple. The pear is there, but it's very sweet.
Yeah, that's a sugar bomb, and it's very syrupy. I love it. We had a pear tree in the backyard for a number of years, and it was always a nice change up from eating apples or making apple pie to now eating pears or making a pear pie. I don't know if anybody had a pear pie.
A pear pie sounds delicious.
They are.
But I've never
And,
had
This
one.
would be a fantastic accompaniment to it.
I would love a pear pie. Have you guys ever, not to get too far off track, have you ever seen the bottle of brandy with the pear growing in it?
No.
I have, yes.
Yes,
I think it's like $80 a bottle. But it's,
I've sold that before, and they actually put those bottles on the trees.
I'm aware of that, but since you sold it, could you tell us anything else about it? Because I've always been fascinated with that, and I never had a bottle of it, and I want one. First of all, is it any good?
It is delicious. It's you definitely get the essence of pear in it. It will destroy you the next day from the amount of sugar that's in it. It's very sweet alcohol, but it's also very easy to drink, which is what makes it such a deadly combination.
Yeah, that is awesome. I mean, it's amazing that they can take a bottle and hang it on a branch on a pear tree after the blossom has been germinated, right? And the pear starts to develop and grows right in the bottle. And
That's
then they
crazy.
just pick it and fill it.
Hey guys, we just had a special guest show up in the studio,
Yeah. Who?
and he lives right around the corner, so I'm sure he'll appear on some future episodes at times.
Hopefully the meat episode.
Yes, definitely the meat episode.
They're taking a claim.
Let's have Steve taste pear, and then he can give his 2 cents, and then we'll move on.
So, Steve, you were saying you have some cider fermenting up at your place?
I do. We had some old school apple trees up at our place up near Ludington, and have no idea what cultivar they are or what species or whatever you call them. And but they were nice and tart, so we juiced a bunch of them and threw in some yeast, and we'll see what happens.
You have your own press?
No, we have the elaborate Jack LaLanne juicer. So
Can you describe that? Just countertop, huh?
just countertop and ground up a bunch and threw them in a 3-gallon fermenter and a little bit of yeast. Although I'm told you can just let them sit and they'll naturally ferment with the yeasts that are just in the ambient atmosphere.
Yeah.
And but we bought a champagne yeast of some sort. I'm afraid it may end up a little too dry, but we shall see.
Yeah, you can always, what do they call that, John? Backfilling?
Backfill with something sweet.
That's what they suggested on some of the websites that I went to beforehand, that you may want to just plan on adding a little bit of sugar after the fact. So may I have some of the cider, please?
That would help.
That's the pear.
Okay, well, glad to introduce S.A.K. to the Beer Nuts. S.A.K. has a long-standing history with the rest of us here. Lives right around the corner, and we were honored to have him as a guest tonight. I'm sure he will appear on some future episodes, especially having anything to do with mead. So we would like him to evaluate the pear cider and tell us his thoughts. What do you think?
That's delicious, actually. Fairly sweet, really nice aroma. I mean, definitely has some apple in it as well.
You hit the nail on the head. Since you arrived after we introduced it, it's apples, pears, unfiltered, and organic. And I'm impressed that it's unfiltered, but it looks clear as a whistle.
I need to get more servings of fruit in my diet every day.
Oh, we're
definitely
this will do it.
We're getting enough tonight.
Nicely carbonated.
So one of the things you'll find out about S.A.K. as you get to know him is he is extremely good at reviewing things, very detailed, and has great sensory ability.
Everything I know I learned from my wife, though.
And I'm sure we'll have her on at some point, too. Probably as well with the mead. She's a very knowledgeable person with sours and meads, I would say. So
you guys done sours?
We have not, but we will certainly make sure that you and your lovely wife will be invited to partake in that, because she knows infinitely more about sours than I do.
Who is the beer nut that is sampling things for the first time? His name is Chris?
Chris?
Yes.
Sours will be an introduction.
I keep hearing this about sours. I keep hearing they'll be rather interesting. Is what
there are starter sours that we can rake you in slowly with, but there will be some other ones that will be a challenge, because I've been through it too, and I'm still being challenged by sours, but I'm coming around one by one.
Don't be soured on sours, guys.
No, my first experience with sours was one of
the first
trial by fire.
Try everything and keep trying. Because even if there's a style that I know I don't care for, I continue to try things. And usually if you try enough of them, you'll find one you like, and then you'll find another one you like, and pretty soon your palate develops to enjoy more and more good quality craft beers. And it's just a learning process and a discovery process, and it's fun. It's fun to discover new things, and it's fun to develop your palate to enjoy more and more quality crafts.
Either way, I'm drinking a beer, right?
Well, except now you're drinking a cider.
True. Yeah, it's rhetorical.
It's just expanding your horizons. That's all it is. Keeping an open mind. So now we know it's good because S.A.K. has asked for more.
I'm told that I missed the Johnny Appleseed stories earlier, but you can see where this could become a daily staple of a family's diet, of a family's refreshment, as opposed to something where you have a questionable water source. You've got a nice, clean, crisp, tart, sweet beverage here.
Alcohol's killing the bacteria. We're good to go.
Well, let me see. A glass of water or this?
Yeah.
An easy choice for me. This is very enjoyable, and it comes as no secret, as you guys know, that I love the pear component of this. I actually should have got a pure perry cider, but that's fine. This is fine, and everybody seems to be enjoying it. That's what it's all about. Let's go backwards. I want S.A.K. to taste.
Absolutely. Get him on there.
This was the most complex of the ones we've had.
Pardon me.
S.
So this was the farmhouse, right? Was it, John, the barrel aged?
Yes, it was aged in a wooden barrel. So let's hear some sensory opinion. This is the gigantic bottle. No way we're ever going to finish. We can try. So you're hearing silence, but the master is at work here. He is taking his time and getting a good whiff of the aroma.
Not nearly as much nose on that as the pear cider. A lot of barrel up front, not nearly as sweet. Definitely some apple in there, but it's far drier. It's delicious, but it's definitely not something a teenager is going to be scrambling for, like the pear cider that we just had.
It's definitely for a more refined palate, and it's very complex. There's a lot going on there, and I think with every sip you discover something a little different in that. We're finding out that there's probably a cider for everyone here. There's a cider for your basic beer drinker that is just discovering ciders. And the first one that we had tastes like apple juice. Anybody can drink that. And then you got various degrees of complexity. And the farmhouse, by far, if you know a wine connoisseur, I'm sure they would really enjoy the farmhouse. I enjoyed it as well.
There's a lot going on there.
So I'm glad that you got to stop by and try that, because it didn't seem to be everybody's favorite. You seem to really enjoy it.
I do enjoy it.
I enjoyed it too. It's just different. And they're all different. And you just got to explore and figure it out. Okay, we're going to move on to the next category of ciders. Specialty ciders included added fruit flavoring, spices, sometimes combinations of apples and pears, which actually the last one was probably more classified as a specialty. But I was so excited that pears in it, I called it a berry cider. But another category is New England ciders made with characteristic New England apples. We don't have one of those, so we'll skip that category. Just wanted to know you to be aware that it was there. The next category we are going to taste is fruit ciders with added fruit, and we have a Julian Cherry Bomb cider to taste. So, bartender, let's taste the cherry.
I'm prepared for tart.
This bottle says explosive on it. Explosive cherry flavor. There's a bomb on the label.
I can only tell you that if it was Prairie Bomb, I'd be pretty happy. So, Cherry Bomb rhymes with Prairie Bomb. I'm going to cross my fingers that it will be.
Yeah, this is tart.
Somewhat on the same level.
Woo! If you don't like tart, this ain't for you.
No, it's very cherry as well. So if you're not a fan of cherry, I'd stay well clear of this one.
Oh, it has a rosé color.
Everybody, let's do a cheers to the beer nuts.
Here's to the beer nuts.
Here's
All right.
Cheers.
Welcome, S.A.K. Hopefully your first of many appearances as a beer nut. You are now dubbed a beer nut. You know what? It reminds me of cherry pie.
Absolutely. Tart cherries.
Can we cue that up? She's my cherry pie.
Sure can.
Hey, I wasn't allowed to sing when I played in the band.
You're still not allowed.
That's right. But it does taste like cherry pie.
Is there a base? What's the base to this? Is it an apple cider? Or is it just a cherry cider?
6.99% ABV. Julian, 100% natural elixir handcrafted with juice from the famed Montmorency cherry. Blended with our premium hard apple cider, the perfect balance of tart and sweet.
I don't get much apple in this. I mean, I get maybe the tart from the apple, maybe the operative chemical with the apple glutaraldehyde or whatever it is that provides its taste. But I mean, I just get cherry.
I'm digging it, guys. I'm digging it.
That's awesome. I mean, it's pure cherry.
Remind me of a liquid cherry pie.
I'm a huge fan of the Montmorency cherries, so this is right up my alley here. I think a lot of the apple that's in here is coming off as acidic, where the overall flavor is cherry, as S.A.K. is saying.
Is that a Runaways reset there?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Joan Jett, she's one of my relatives, I think.
Yes.
So you're,
Well, I've always wanted to have relations with Joan Jett. Anyway.
In the Blackhawks.
Rock and Roll Hall of Famer.
Well, this is great. I mean, the variety tonight is really impressing me on the ciders. Okay, sweet, dry, barrel aged, pear perry. Now we're on to cherries. I mean, what else is there out there? There's got to be tons more specialty stuff out there.
Well, a big or a popular one in Spain is lemon.
Lemon cider?
Lemon cider.
The title does not captivate me.
It's delicious.
Really?
Yes.
If
you're looking for an example of it, there's Virtue Cider here in Michigan. Makes a cider called Cidra de Nava, which is a Spanish style lemon cider.
Get a little cider and dugout, and he's speaking in tongues.
We run a clean show here, but if we wanted to, we could have played the Saturday Night Live commercial for Dickens Fruit Company.
Oh, that's
cider.
That's a Bob and Tom bit, the Dickens cider.
Because everybody, well, never mind. I'm not going.
Yeah.
What is the definition of a cider? Is it basically any fruit juice that's then fermented?
No, only apple.
Only apple. So it is exclusively apple.
Yep.
Unless it's a Perry, my brother's name. I'm going to have some more explosive cherry cider, although I think it's time to move on to something that I'm really looking forward to because I've never had. Dugout, would you like to introduce our next cider that we can taste?
Yeah, this is
because I know this is Chris's favorite category, herbs and spices.
Yeah, there you go.
Now this is Anthem cider. It is from Oregon, and is this a dry hopped there, JR?
That's it. Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Can you remind us what is close relative of the hop plant?
I believe it would be the cannabis plant.
That's kind of, I thought you like the herbs and spices category.
Yes.
Wonder if there's a cannabis cider on this earth. I bet you if you go to Colorado, you can get one.
Check Colorado, Oregon, Washington. So this is
Wow,
hop
this cider is
cider?
pouring nearly clear like water. I mean, there's very little color.
So what is this, apple and hops?
Yeah, this is a dry hop cider, so it is going to have some beer qualities to it, particularly with the hops.
I've only experienced the aroma so far, and it's
Oh, I love this.
wow, that smells great. Chris, does that smell good to you?
I just finished my cherry bomb.
Okay, we'll give you some time.
We have big glasses to go with our big bottles here.
I don't know about you guys, but we got a lot of half-full bottles here.
Yeah, us too. Sort of.
I'm working through them.
Because the beer nuts motto is haste, not waste, right?
Absolutely correct.
Get that flowery smell again.
I was intrigued to try this. I didn't know what to expect.
I tell you what, the problem tonight is I had like a huge dinner before we did this. So it's like I keep standing up, sitting down, trying to make some
Well, that
room.
means you can drink.
I was pregnant with a food baby when we started.
But that means you can drink more, and it also means you don't have to try.
Yes.
So that's a good thing. Always accentuate positive, eliminate negative. Okay, guys. S.A.K. is going to review the Anthem hops. Hopefully, the Zombie Killer, and then Bill.
I've had a hop cider before, and I don't recall which one. I don't think it was this one. I suppose anytime I hear hops, I'm expecting some bitterness, and I don't know if it's just the sweetness of the cider that is just overpowering the bitterness and making it just disappear. But I'm not getting any bitterness. I mean, it's got a beautiful aroma, a little bit of a drier finish, but little or no bitterness for me.
I agree. The hops, to me, is solely the aroma. It's almost non-existent in the liquid on the tongue.
Oh, yeah.
It has a dry finish. It actually tastes similar to wine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see what kind of hops they put in this. I'm getting a real earthy flavor off of mine, and I believe that is from the hops.
I believe it's Cascade, correct?
That is what it says on the bottle. It says with Cascade hops.
Any other comments? Hops cider. It's what we've kind of determined is it's most of the hops exist in your own, not on the palate. Maybe a little bit of earthiness according to Doug out. I'm glad I tried it. I expected a little bit different. So, okay, everybody, we're going to say goodbye to S.A.K. Thank you for stopping by. Pleasure having you. Look forward to you on future episodes of Beer Nuts.
As they say in Old Mexico, AMF.
Yeah, man.
S.A.K. He's thinking about it.
I'm confused.
Adios.
Chachos.
Okay, machacho is much nicer than normal. Okay.
AMF.
Yeah. A blend of English and Spanish, perhaps.
Yes.
Okay, I got the headset on. Is that better?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, much better.
You regret having to miss out on the next one? I know it's a delicious
You
one.
can still taste it if you don't want to be.
I've had it before.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, well, back to headset. Is it better now?
Okay, guys.
Good seeing you, Steve. Thanks for coming in.
Those are. They also have those at Home Goods. I think they're maybe $5 a pop.
Okay, I'll check them out.
For you.
Appreciate it, Steve.
Thanks, brother. Okay, Beer Nuts. We're down to our last cider we're going to taste. Dugout, this was your choice. I'm going to allow you to introduce this. Explain what a sizer is.
Well, sizer is sort of a hybrid between cider and mead. This particular one we're tasting is a very local product. It's bee nectar. B is in the letter B, and nectar. They are really well known for their meads, but they're also very innovative meadery, and they've come out with quite a few ciders that are mixed with honey. This particular one is mixed with cherry and honey, and it's called Zombie Killer. This is a favorite of mine. I really enjoy this stuff.
Love the label. You got like this samurai apple chopping his sword into the head of another apple. There's all kinds of good juice coming out. Oh, no, it's a cherry. He's chopping off the head of the cherry.
On a previous episode here, we were talking about some beer festivals, and this was one of the ones that I had brought up was the Bee Nectar Festival. These guys are located out of Ferndale, Michigan.
That's right, Dugout. Didn't you attend that festival?
I sure did.
Tell us a little bit about it.
I did.
Bee Nectar all about?
I did on a previous episode, but it was
well,
it was
refresh our memory.
Pretty quirky place. I mean, just about anybody and everybody was there. It was visually stimulating, to say the least. All walks of life, all ages, and it was in this very industrial, gritty parking lot. But the offerings they had were amazing. They had blood orange mead and cherry meads, and they had the sizers. The cherry one.
Now,
that
I understand
we have now.
they do a hopped version of the Zombie Killer as well.
They sure do, and it is absolutely amazing.
I think it's just fantastic.
Sorry.
It's not as cherry forward as the cherry bomb we had from the Julian, but it's there definitely. The cherries are definitely there.
That's good.
It's got a nice pink color, kind of like a rosé. And I get a nice sweetness, and from the mead. Very well done.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this. This is very tasty. Like
really
you said,
good.
you can taste the honey, the sweetness of the mead. Little tiny bubbles in it again. Slightly carbonated. Most meads are still, and this has a little carbonation in it. So it is. It's a cross section between a cider and a mead, which is a sizer. And
I'm really glad we did this topic today. I mean, I'm kind of opening up a whole new chapter in the book here.
Well, you know what? The little theme of our show is trying to bring Chris along and introduce him to new things and new experiences, new flavors. Chris, what's your opinion of the cider show? How you coming along here?
I didn't hate anything I had tonight. So that's good. No, I really enjoy it. In fact, I could tell you this last thing that we got to do beer of the week here soon, or this would be cider of the week. But I mean, I can tell you, I already got a winner picked out. I mean, everything was good. There was nothing like I always talk about. If I got saddled with a bottle of something tonight, I don't think I would be upset if I got saddled with a bottle of anything we drank.
So we didn't really have any drain pours. In the craft beer world, that's called a drain pour. If it's something that you just cannot drink or have no desire to drink,
you
call that a drain pour.
Take it to the sink and turn it upside down.
There was no drain pours. I'd say the farmhouse was probably the most challenging one. But like somebody like S.A.K. with a sophisticated palate, probably that might be his favorite.
What I would offer you to do
with any of this, it's what you enjoy, and it's all an adventure, and we all have different tastes, and I think we're going to see a lot of different favorites here tonight.
Absolutely.
Well, what I would offer up for you to do is retry that farmhouse. Just pour another sip of it. It's warmed up a little bit.
The first one?
The farmhouse, which we have a ton of.
The 750 bottle.
It's the English style, yep.
Try that again.
So I'm going to do that.
Especially coming after these two sweets. Go back to that. You're going to be pleasantly surprised on that.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it when it was out before, but okay. So we're going to do a show in the near future on how to taste things and sensory evaluation, just to try to bring everybody up to speed on how to properly evaluate something. But, just put it up your nose, take a couple short sniffs, see what you're thinking, and then when you taste it, the best thing my advice would be is just to make sure you touch it to all areas of your mouth. If you just put it on one part of your tongue, each part of your tongue tastes different, has different sensations that it's responsible for. So if you just put it on one on the front of your tongue, you're not going to get the full. So switch it around your mouth. You got to expose it to all areas of your mouth and tongue, and
it's do the roll, do the tongue roll.
Long strange trip.
Easy guys, it's a family show.
It is
tongue rolling.
Yeah. It is a lot different now. It tastes a lot different that it's warmed up, but there's still that buttery thing going on. I don't think it's diacetyl, but buttery. I can remember one of my favorite Chardonnays I ever had when I sold wine had a buttery characteristic that I actually enjoyed. I thought it was a positive. It was like a $30 bottle of wine, so I don't think it's a negative.
I like butter.
Butter's delicious.
Butter's delicious. Butterscotch, not so much. But I don't know. This will not get my vote as the favorite, but it definitely is complex in many areas. Down to the level of sweetness. It's not very sweet. It's very dry, but it's just got a lot going on, and I think it's from the wood barrel. I mean, there might be a little bread in there. Who knows? Let's go back to the Cider. Did we fully evaluate that?
Oh, I evaluated it as delicious.
I'm with you on that.
What did the food baby think, Chris?
Oh, it finds it delicious as well.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
this is a product that you'll find on
tasted everything we're going to
draft.
taste now, other than going back and
finishing it all.
Favorites. But I wanted to. One of the things I wanted to do in this show is I have a very good friend in my homebrew club. His name is Alex. And Alex is from Northern Ireland. And what's cool about Alex is Alex moved here like 30 years ago, like in the 80s. That's probably closer to 40. But anyway, he moved here and he quickly discovered that Bud Miller Coors, no disrespect intended, was not going to cut it for him. So he started brewing his own beer, and he brewed some produced some ciders as well. Ironically, here now that we're in this day and age, he doesn't brew anymore because he claims there's so many good beers on the market he doesn't need to brew, which is kind of a different way to think of things. You usually think of things, I can buy all these great beers, but it's cool to make my own because I can do whatever I want, and it's so fun to produce your own. And when there's nothing like a great feeling when you homebrew and you have a batch that everybody wants, And I've had batches that everybody wants, and I've had batches that I had to dump down the toilet. But
so the market has risen to his standards, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, he basically moved here and he brewed out of necessity. I can't get any good beers here. I'm going to brew my own. And now he doesn't have to do that because he's so impressed with the craft scene. But that being said, the reason I'm bringing his name up for this episode is he brought in last year to one of our homebrew club meetings a 1-gallon jug of cider that was just a cider he got at a local, like a Farmer Charlie's or a local cider place that you go with the kids and you have the hay rides and all that. And by the way, we make cider here too. Well, he took a jug of that and he put some yeast in it and made cider out of it just in like 2 weeks. And it was really cool. And I was like, God, how do you do that? I want to do that. So before this episode, I called him and made sure I got all the details. It's really so simple. Anybody could do this. So I hope some of our listeners will do this. You go out to the local cidery. The only thing you have to do is make sure that you can get a gallon of cider that does not have sorbate in it. Because what they do is they make the cider and they put sorbate in it, which kills the yeast, which will prevent any fermentation. Because otherwise, you might be giving your little 5-year-old son, little Johnny, a glass of apple cider that might have a little alcohol in it from fermentation. Wild yeast gets in there. So they put sorbate in it, which protects it from doing that. So if you can find a maker, which it's pretty easy to do, you find a cider with no sorbate, or you can go to the source and you can ask a cider maker, hey, can I get a gallon of cider that's not been treated with sorbate yet? I want to make some hard cider. And they'll be happy to accommodate you and sell you a jug of that. And then you just take it home, and here's the key. He says, again, we've been talking about how dry some of these ciders are because there's no sweetness in them because the yeast produces, takes all the sugars, converts them into alcohol and CO2, and there's no sweetness left. So here's what you do. You take your gallon of no sorbate cider. That's the key. You got to go to a place that make sure there's no sorbate in it. Look on the label. If it says sorbate, you can't use that because the yeast won't live in that. Then you take about 12 ounces, maybe 10 ounces out of a 64-ounce jug, at least 8 ounces, maybe 10 ounces of it, and you pour a glass out, and you want to put that in a container with a lid on it and put it back in the fridge and refrigerate it and keep it refrigerated and sealed for the time being. Then you take the cider out of refrigeration, you put it and let it warm up to room temperature, like 70 degrees, 68, 66, whatever your ambient temperature is in your house. And when it reaches that room temperature level, then you just pop some yeast in there. You can go to a homebrew store and use a homebrew yeast. You can go get baking yeast from the store. It really doesn't matter. This is just a very basic thing we're doing here. We're not sophisticated in it. We're just making hard cider naturally. And you let it sit about a week. What you want to do is if you put the cap on it, you want to put it on very loosely, or probably higher recommendation would be just to put a piece of foil over it. It's because when it ferments out, the CO2 will be created and build up pressure. And if you have a cap on there, it could explode or expand. So you'll see the 1 gallon jugs start to get bigger and bigger, and eventually it could explode, and that could result in a mess that you don't want to deal with. Or you could put the cap on really loose, so as the CO2, it has an opportunity to escape. Again, my recommendation is just to take a piece of foil and put it over the top so air can't get in, but CO2 can escape. And you let it sit in your kitchen for a week, 10 days. A week's fine, really. And it'll naturally ferment. And here's the last key to it is remember how the first one we had tasted like apple juice. Well, what you do, you take that original cup that you poured out. First of all, you need a little space in the top for the yeast. If it's fermenting, it's going to put some foam and stuff on the top, some poison. But as well, that pure cider that you poured out before that you didn't ferment in, you can backfill that into the gallon jug. What you want to do is after the week, then you take that sweet cider that hasn't been affected by the yeast and you pour it back in. Then you mix it all up and it sweetens. It back sweetens it, because if you just taste it before you put that in, it'll be dry. Like a wine, like some of the ones we tasted tonight that had no sweetness. But if you pour that one glass of sweet cider that was not fermented in, that gives it sugar and will sweeten the whole batch. So I hope that I made that clear enough that how easy that is to do.
All right.
So I hope everybody will go in search of a local cider, get a jug, pour a glass out, put it in your fridge, toss some yeast in there, let it sit a week, and then put the glass back in, and there you go. How more simple you can make your own hard cider. It's simple as can be. And again, thank you to Alex for his knowledge in doing that. So I'm going to do that, and I'll report back on a future episode how it goes.
Well, shall we each pick a favorite now?
It's time for
cider of the week.
Time for the cider of the week. Selected from all the ciders we've tasted this evening, and Chris, as the newbie, we're going to go with you first.
Oh, Zombie Killer, hands down. That was the best.
After you tasted that, you were like, I'm in.
Oh, it's either that or the pear one, but I mean the Zombie Killer I thought was the best. So that's my vote.
Very good. 1 vote for B Nectar Zombie Killer. Dugout.
That's going to be 2 votes for B Nectar Zombie Killer. I think I mentioned already that I'm a big fan of this, and while the as far as pure ciders go, I thought the Farmhouse from Tandem was the best of the pure ciders. But as far as overall drinking experience, I'm going to have to go with the Zombie Killer.
Fair enough. Uncle B?
Okay, this is going to be a rough one tonight, guys, because I'm more partial to the sweeter end of the scale versus the dry. And I like the JKs. The first one was very good. I do prefer the Perry style from JK, the one with the mix. All of them are very good. I'm not saying anything bad about any of these tonight, but I'm going to stick with the sweet end of the scale, and I'm going to stick with JK's Farmhouse Ciders.
Okay, very good. I guess that puts me down to the deciding. We got 2 zombie killers and one. I really want to vote for that Perry, but man, that cherry bomb was pretty good.
Oh, JR, bucking the trend, like he always does.
I have to go with the. It surprised me. I thought it was a gimmicky thing, but I really enjoyed that cherry pie flavor from the cherry bomb. So I think if we had a cider that was 100% pear, that would be my hands down favorite. And I really, really did enjoy the JK pear and apple. But the cherry pie, I got to go with the Julia. So we have 2 votes for the Bee Nectar Zombie Killer. We have 1 vote for the JK's The Pear Cherry Cider. So that was 1 vote from Uncle Pete, and JR's vote is for the Julian Hard Cider Cherry Bomb, and I like that it's 6.99% alcohol. So I guess that makes our winner. Drum roll, please. Okay.
Brewery of the week.
Cider of the week. I guess it's not a brewery, it's a cider. The cider bill of the week is Bee Nectar Zombie Killer.
All right.
Serve it cold.
Honey and cherry apple.
Serve cold because zombies don't like the cold.
Looking on the label, the 2011 Mazer Cup Gold Medal winner.
And you will find this on draft at several places.
You can find it on draft.
You can find it on draft. Yep.
You know, I was thinking, by the way, this week too, I should probably get that Untapped app you guys are all talking about. Start keeping track of the things I'm drinking.
Yep.
All right. With that being said, I guess we're gonna wrap it up, guys. Happy Halloween if you're listening on Halloween. If not, hey, hope you had a good Halloween. Fun show actually with the ciders. A lot of people, you know, they keep a close mind with the ciders, and a lot of good selections tonight. You know, I could tell you too, and this is funny for me. I was intrigued with with the hops ale because it wasn't too hoppy, but yet it had the, I don't know, it was compelling. I want another glass.
It's because, in my opinion, it's because it's dry hopped. So you're just adding nuances of the hops. It's not fully boiled in like it would be with beer. So you don't get those that full power of the hops in a cider like that, just having it dry hopped.
I wonder if I have to think someone's experimented with trying to put hops in earlier, but I would love to try to get more hop flavor in it versus hop aroma. We'll leave that to the experts.
And what's keeping this from being an apple ale? Yeast? Is that like the one thing that's probably keeping it from being? Because technically, wouldn't it have all the ingredients already?
No, there's no barley in here. It's just
it's barley, yeast. Forget about those things.
Yeah, cider is made with apple, beer is made with barley. So remember, the 4 basic ingredients necessary to have a beer are malted barley,
hops,
yeast, water, and hops.
Reinheitsgebot.
And also remember, as Frank Zappa would say, you can't be a real country unless you have a beer and an airline.
That being said, guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for following at Michigan Beer Guy on Twitter. Go to MichiganBeerGuy.com. Click on Win This Glass, and you can get yourself a neat little tulip glass from MichiganBeerGuy.com. Thanks for downloading us on iTunes, ChristopherMedia.net. Thanks to everybody who's listening. Tell a friend. Go on iTunes, write a review, give us 5 stars. If you write 2 5-stars reviews, that's like giving us 10. We figured that out on another podcast. But anyways, thank you everybody for listening. And JR, believe you have the sign-off.
As they say in old Mexico City, AMF.
If you enjoy this show and want more people to know about it, head on over to iTunes, leave a comment, and rate it 5 stars. Make sure you like and share us on Facebook, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter. Just search for Christopher Media. Thank you in advance for supporting Christopher Media by clicking on the PayPal button and by clicking through to all the sponsors who support ChristopherMedia.net. Most importantly, we would like to take the time to extend an extra special thanks to you. Christopher Media could not exist without your support. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net, and thank you for listening. Christopher Media. Let's make some noise. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
It's a new year, and with T-Mobile, it's not about how far apart we are. It's about how close we can be. So we're bringing out our best deal. Right now, get the iPhone 12 on us on every single plan with eligible iPhone trade-in.
So I can FaceTime with my sister in Savannah.
That's right, the iPhone 12 on us on every plan. All on America's 5G leader in coverage. T-Mobile.
With 24 monthly bill credits and a new line plus tax. If you cancel credit, stop and balance on required finance agreement may be due. Contact us for well-qualified buyers. Qualifying consumer plan required. See coverage and offer details at T-Mobile.com.
It's a new year, and with T-Mobile, it's not about how far apart we are. It's about how close we can be. So we're bringing out our best deal. Right now, get the iPhone 12 on us on every single plan with eligible iPhone trade-in.
So I can FaceTime with my sister in Savannah.
That's right, the iPhone 12 on us on every plan. All on America's 5G leader in coverage. T-Mobile.
With 24 monthly bill credits and a new line plus tax. If you cancel credit, stop and balance on required